Welcome to Path to Glory, the Warhammer Underworlds podcast that focuses on competitive gaming, player development, and community growth. This episode was made possible by our patrons. Thank you to everyone who supports us. If you're interested in supporting the podcast monetarily, please check us out at patreon.com/Path to Glory. If that's not possible, totally okay. We still appreciate the listens and the support. This is Aman Khusro, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Jonathan Davis.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing today, bud?
Doing good.
Good. Awesome. Well, today's episode, we're going to be covering the starter set. We're going to define what the starter set is, answer any misconceptions that we've been seeing, at least on social media, and then we're going to jump into reviewing the first warband of the bunch, the Order warband, the Storm of Celestus. But before we get into that, Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and describe what this starter set is?
Well, this starter set seems like it was designed to be an intro to Warhammer Underworlds that a player can buy pretty much at any time. The cool thing about it is that the boards and the warbands are pretty much evergreen. They're just always going to be playable.
Yes, absolutely. So there are two Night Vault boards, I believe, in the set. Don't know the names, but you can see the pictures on Warhammer Community. And yeah, the whole idea, as Jonathan mentioned, is if you want to get into the game, but you're kind of confused or you think your friend might not want to comprehend the universal aspect of it, well, great. Starter set, two solid warbands, completely faction-only cards, all the tokens, dice, and boards you need to play. And then after that, you can expand your friend or you, if you're never started this game before, into other aspects of the game and buy other warbands. I really like the idea of this because this is targeted to brand new players, but there's also something here for veterans as well because you get two brand new warbands. And then
Yeah.
maybe if you didn't play in Night Vault, you can get access to some older boards that are out of production as well because technically they're in production now.
Yeah, I think the advantage of it over the classic season core sets is that the boards will presumably never go away. They were not going to cycle out. You don't get universals with it, but depending on where you are in the season, like if you were about to buy Beastgrave right now, that may not actually be worthwhile. So it's an interesting concept. It's kind of like the Dreadfane expansion, but it actually has boards, which is a good thing. So it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. It's got some certifications from the Blue Tower as well, which is a really big deal. Before we get into reviewing the Storm of Celestus, I do want to thank Games Workshop. We both are early reviewers, and we get product to review early and ahead of time. So thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and get started. There are 4 fighters in this warband. It is 3 Stormcast Eternals, all equipped with giant crossbows. I believe they're called Thunderhead Great Bows. And they have a loyal Griphound companion. So we're going to go ahead and start with the moniker and namesake of the warband. The Storm of Celestus, again, is the name of the warband. And this is Drakon Celestus. He's got 3 move, 1 block, 4 wounds. He's got 2 attack profiles. So range 3, 2 smash, 2 damage. That's his Thunderhead Greatbow. Interesting thing to note, the Thunderhead Greatbow can only, this fighter can only make this attack action once per phase. So it's a one-shot. But that kind of makes sense because it is a big gun. Probably need to reload it. And then if you get up and close and personal with him, he can just hit you with the gun with a heavy stock. Range 1, 2 smash, 2 damage as well. So even though he looks a bit older, he can pack quite the punch. Now, he is the leader of the warband, and when this warband inspires, they do so by making a successful Thunderhead Greatbow attack action. So as you would imagine from a warband toting very large guns, it is integral for them to hit you and use those guns for them to kind of, get things going. Now, when Celestus inspires, he gains an additional block. His heavy stock goes to 3 smash. And when this fighter is holding an objective, this fighter cannot be driven back. So, not necessarily guard, but pretty strong, especially because some of their faction objectives have to do with holding objectives. Jonathan, what do you think of Drakon Celestus or Draken Celestus?
Yeah, I think he's a pretty cool fighter. The range 3, 2 smash, 2 damage is a pretty solid attack. The heavy stock attack is pretty decent. It's not the best attack we've seen on a leader, but It's not really anything wrong with it. Kind of reminds me of Farstrider, and if you compare him directly to Farstrider, then um, the only downside is you can only shoot once, I guess.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
little slower too, but
right. This actually reminds me of a combination of Sanson Farstrider and Aberrant Stormsire,
yeah,
where they kind of have that range 2 damage off the bat, which is pretty much where the um, comparisons with Stormsire end. But I mean, it's kind of cool because I mean it's pretty respectable profile. 2 damage,
yeah.
2 smash, range 1 and 3, and then getting that 2 block at the end. And of course, Stormcast Eternals are always 4 wounds, so very very cool. What do you think about his special rule where he can't be driven back if he's holding an objective?
I think that's really cool. Particularly the way that their Inspire works. If you charge onto an objective and you hit your attack, then you're going to be 2 block and you're not going to be able to get driven back off that objective. And I think that's a pretty big deal. I think it's going to reward him for basically charging aggressively onto objectives. If you miss that attack, that's going to be unfortunate, but that's how it works, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like a curse breaker effect when you empower. Like there's so much invested in like getting a particular roll off because not only are you
Yeah.
doing damage but you're inspiring. So very similar feel there. But yeah, I completely agree with your assessment.
That kind of
Let's
seems to
jump.
be a theme across most Stormcast. They kind of have that Inspire that you really want to go off.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess with condemners you want to roll a crit, and with champions you want to roll the successful defense. So you're absolutely correct. Yeah, that is interesting. Rolling the
Yeah.
dice and letting Sigmar or Fate decide where they go. Let's jump to our next fighter. Looks really cool, imposing. He's kind of like ready to like brace for impact. And I guess it kind of makes sense on some of the attack actions here. So again, like every Stormcast Eternal, 3 move, 1 block, 4 wounds. He's got the exact same profile for his Thunderhead Greatbow, 3 range, 2 smash, 2 damage. He does have a shoulder barge attack, so kind of looks like that because he's about to yank his shoulder into you. 1 range, 3 fury, 1 damage, knockback 1. Same rules apply for the Thunderhead Greatbow, only 1 time per action phase, and of course, he inspires by a successful Thunderhead Greatbow attack action. Now, when Aphus inspires, his Thunderhead Greatbow doesn't change, but his Shoulder Barge goes to 2 damage, keeps the knockback, and nothing else really changes except for a really cool rule. If this fighter is holding an objective, you can reroll 1 dice in this fighter's defense rolls. So he's, I guess, the more accurate, version of the bunch. He's secured the high ground, if you will, and he's aiming down and plowing away. What do you think about Aphus the Brave?
Hmm. I mean, he seems like a slightly worse version of the leader,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Um, the knockback, I guess, situationally could be interesting. Um, but it is interesting that he has such low damage. I guess 2 isn't that bad, and you can always upgrade him. So you're definitely going to want to make that a charge with him in the first round, I think. Just go ahead and get the 2 damage shot off.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. He's just a slightly weaker version of the leader in terms of stats, but I do think potentially his hold objective special rule is more interesting because you get that reroll. So if you like charge onto objective, as you mentioned with Celestus, and you happen to stay on it, when you start the next round, you can get a more accurate shot. 2 smash plus a reroll is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Okay, well, our next fighter is Melisande Starsighted. Again, 3 move, 1 block, 4 wounds. Same exact stats for the Thunderhead Greatbow, range 3, 2 smash, 2 damage. Same Inspire, needs to have a successful attack action. Can only be used once per attack for the Thunderhead Greatbow. But this one is a kicker. She has Crushing Kick, range 1, 2 smash, 1 damage. When she inspires, that kick goes to 2 damage with knockback 1. Her special rule for holding objective is +1 dice to this fighter's attack actions. What do you think about Melisande?
What was the bonus again?
She gets a reroll. Oh no, sorry. What +1 dice when she's holding an
Yeah,
objective?
yeah. Okay. I heard you right. So I like her a little bit better than, what was it? Aphus. But they're
Yeah,
very close.
Aphus.
Very, very similar fighters. And I would say where it matters, they're all three of them are pretty good. In that second round, you want to have inspired, then you can probably shoot something and then charge something. In the first round, you probably charge with them. But I like the bonuses for holding objectives. I think they're interesting. And for the bonuses to the attacks, it's kind of cool that you could charge onto an objective and get the bonus for that attack.
Yeah, right on. Completely agree. I think all three fighters function the same. And
Yeah.
then the bonus is um, just add more flavor and can be situationally pretty solid. This is
Right.
the first Stormcast Eternal Warband with 4 fighters.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
And
we've
what a
got
fourth
Sleek.
fighter.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. Sleek the Gryph-hound. Range 4. So, movement of 4. He does dodge because he's agile little good boy. He's got 3 wounds. And he's got a Beacon Claws attack action. Range 1, 3 Fury, 1 damage. This fighter's Beacon Claw attack action succeeds is the Inspire condition. Now, it says this fighter cannot have attack action upgrades. Makes sense. Can't hold any weapons. He's a doge.
Mm-hmm.
He does have a really cool reaction called Warning Cry. This fighter can only make this reaction once per phase. Use this after an enemy fighter's declare attack action step. If that enemy fighter is within 2 hexes of this fighter. If you do, give 1 guard token to each friendly fighter within 1 hex. Very, very powerful. But before we get into that, just jumped into his inspired side. He goes to 5 move and 2 dodge. He's a quicker fella. And his attack action goes to 3. It's already 3 fury, but he gains ensnare. So again, +1 dice on defense, +1 move, and ensnare keyword on his attack action. Jonathan, what do you think about Sleek?
I think he's really cool. I think initially when I saw the warband, I was a little bit concerned that he would be a liability. A lot of the time, like in Wild Hunt, for example, sometimes Legane can seem like a liability because he's not really that hard to kill. But this reaction really makes it so that you don't want to just dive in on him. Because if he's near the other ones and you get too close to him, he's going to put everybody on guard. And that sounds kind of like a nightmare. So I
Yeah.
don't think you want to do that.
Yeah. It almost makes the leader's ability gain a little redundant. So I think you probably want to keep him next to the other 2 for sure.
Yeah.
Because that the ability to not be driven back is essentially guard. But I mean, even if Celestus is not on an objective, then I think, or inspired rather, I think it's really good. Yeah, I really agree, man, with your assessment. So what do you think about the warband from a fighter card perspective?
I think they seem pretty solid. You should inspire 2 fighters, I would say, on average, in that first round if you charge with all 4 of them. Hopefully, it's 2 of the Storm cast, particularly the leader. But basically, having 3 attacks with effectively 6 range, 2 damage, I think is pretty solid for anything. They seem a lot like Mogor's Fiends to me because of that inspire condition.
Yeah.
It's going to feel a lot like that, I think. But the bonuses for holding the objectives are cool. I think we'll see how useful that is, but I do feel like objectives are more useful for medium-sized warbands than they have been in the past.
Do you count 4 as medium, or is that still small to you?
I guess I start to count it as medium. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I completely agree. They're going to live and die by their dice rolls, attack dice rolls specifically, just like most warbands. But you feel it more because of that shared or similar inspired condition to Magor's Fiends. So, an aggro ranged version of Magor's Fiends with a slightly weaker Rip Tooth is the way I would.
Yeah. Yeah, but probably a lot harder to kill because of those defense dice and because of Sleek's reaction. So, it's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool warband. Big fan of the Stormcast aesthetic, and I do like range fighters, so seems like a match made in heaven. Let's start with their objectives. So we got the first objective here. We're going to go in alphabetical order. Advancing Storm for 1 glory. Score this immediately after an activation in which a friendly fighter makes a range 1 attack action that takes an enemy fighter in enemy territory out of action. What do you think?
I think this one's a little bit tricky for them, in particular because other than the leader, their initial melee attacks aren't great. They could still probably do it at some point, so I don't think it's a bad card, but I guess I want to see what the other options are.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with surges is that you kind of want to take surges that can help you almost score them in any phase, any round.
Hmm.
And this one feels definitely like a second round score.
Yeah, I think so.
Alrighty, well, next card, Balanced Strategy Surge. Score this immediately after an opponent's activation if your warband holds objectives 2 and 4. What do you think?
Yeah, that's really cool. It's definitely better than the end phase versions, the tactical supremacies.
Right.
Um, 2 glory, you said?
Yeah, 2 glory.
Yeah, that's a lot of glory. So I don't know. These may be worth taking. It's just gonna be a little random depending on where those objectives are.
Yeah, I really like the fact that it is 2 glory. But you're absolutely correct. Random luck of the draw. It might be on the other side of the board. You move 3. The cool thing is, and we didn't mention this, but Sleek can hold objectives because it doesn't say he can't.
Right.
So he's, again, very similar to Riptooth in design. So, with that 5 move inspired, he can, or even 4 with like a Spectral Wings, he can jump across the board.
Yeah. I think what we'll have to figure out as we play these guys is if this style ends up going well enough with how they want to play. Because yes, you could dive, sleek across the board, grab an objective, get 2 glory. But if he's not near his other fighters, then he's probably going to die, and he's not going to also give out guard tokens when he does it. So
Right.
seems like there could be some like cost associated with this, but 2 glory is a lot. So
2 glory
I,
is a
I like
lot.
it.
Yeah, big
Yeah.
fan. Next card, another Surge for 2 glory. Boy, oh boy. Score this immediately after an opponent's activation if your warband holds 2 or more of the following objectives 1, 3, and 5. So any combination of 1, 3, and 5. What do you think?
Well, this one is just like the other one, but better. Um,
Yeah, a little bit more
just a little bit
flexibility.
more flexible. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Exact same concept behind it. I dropped the card. 1 second. Oh, no.
It's a really interesting design. Like, I would probably be a little mad if this was a Thorns of the Briar Queen card, but for a 4-fighter warband, this is interesting, and it makes me want to think about playing objective stuff with them
Yeah, definitely. I
because
feel
these
like
are
this
really good
warband.
cards.
Yeah, I mean, like Dread Pageant are like a 4-fighter
Hmm.
warband that love holding objectives. So like dominant position and maybe swift capture can be really, really neat here.
Yeah.
Um, so very cool stuff. Next card, 1 glory, Bulwark Against the Dark. Score this in an end phase if each surviving friendly fighter has 1 or more upgrades. What do you think?
This is an okay end phase card. You probably score it sometime in the second, maybe the third round, which doesn't make me. I probably wouldn't take it in a competitive deck, but it does get easier as the game goes on as you lose fighters. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we've seen this a lot in other factions, and I completely agree. It's it's good for like a starter, like a pure faction deck.
right,
But aside from that, I don't know if we spend more time on it. Next
no,
card, crucial objective, 1 glory surge. Score this immediately after an opponent's activation if your warband holds 2 or 4. Objective 2 or 4.
yeah, yeah, and I guess we didn't really talk about how all of these are after an opponent's activation, right?
Right, we did not.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. I guess what that's going to mean is, once your opponent knows what you're trying to do, um, they're going to be trying to get you off of those objectives. So it's not like you can just dive, sleek in, and nab objective 2 or whatever. You're actually going to have to move on, and then it's up to your opponent to get you off. So that'll be really interesting. I think I think I'm definitely going to try these cards because they seem like they'd be pretty powerful.
Yeah, I really like the fact that it's after an opponent's activation because from a new player standpoint, it can kind of feel bad if it was after any activation or after your activation.
Hmm.
So it gives the enemy or the opponent, who's presumably a newer player, or even someone who's a veteran, the chance to react to your play and then kind of deny it. So I like that there's a deniability factor here. From an efficiency standpoint, I mean, I feel like the whole idea is like if you can lean into the objective play, then great because then your opponent doesn't know what you're trying to do or which numbers you're
Hmm.
going for. So if they can't stop you or stop more than one of your fighters, then it could potentially work out if you're just looking to just jump on all the objectives and blast them away. Um, but I don't know. You're right. I like the fact that you said the word try, because in a way it might not work out, right? Like it
Yeah.
might just be better to go full aggro, shoot face.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be situations when you have to move a Stormcast onto an objective without making a ranged attack. Um, and I guess you can set up the objectives, kind of close to your enemy, so that you can then charge onto them. But that means that they're going to have the opportunity to block them, and you may have to fight over them. So
Yeah.
very, very interesting. Makes them a little bit. They certainly don't like being pushed off of objectives after their activations, and they
No.
may want to take a bunch of pushes to help secure. So.
Yeah, or guard stuff. Like maybe if Sleek's too far away.
Hmm.
Buried instinct sounds really cool for them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's worth taking like a tight defense or survival instincts. Just depending.
I
So
also like how the better of the two glory ones is the opposite of the one glory one.
yes.
Um, so you're not going to really be able to stack like you can sometimes with hidden purpose, temporary victory. Like you'd have to theoretically hold like almost all the objectives to score.
Within
Those
the
two.
faction deck, because you can definitely just
Right.
take hidden purpose or swift capture and kind of do all
Yeah,
that.
and you
So
probably will, but
yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah, next card is a 3 glory end phase called Great Purification. Score this in the end phase if your warband holds 3 or more objectives, or if 4 or more, or 4 or more enemy fighters are out of action. So hold 3 at the end of the round, or 4 fighters are dead. What do you think?
So I think this one's pretty tricky. Even with something like Glorious Triumph, I think holding 3 objectives with a 4-fighter warband is going to be pretty hard. And killing 4 fighters is a lot. We talked about, I think in the last episode, how killing 3 fighters is a lot
Yeah,
with the vampires. So
with Blood
this is
Ruin
a
or
little bit more
whatever.
glory, but
Yeah.
it's pretty difficult.
Well, there might be some matchups where that second option isn't even an option because they have 3 fighters.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this could be terrible. But it's worth 3 glory, so something that you could build into.
Yeah.
Next card, Here We Stand. Score this in the end phase if your warband holds 2 or more objectives for 1 glory. So an end phase hidden purpose. What do you think?
This one I think I like. If you're going with an objective hold style, I think this is pretty doable. A lot of warbands would really, really like this card. I think the only reason I wouldn't take it is if I wasn't trying to play objectives or there were just better options. Probably 2 glory options.
Yeah, I completely agree. Lightning Strike, 1 glory. Score this in the end phase if an enemy leader is out of action. So we've seen a bunch of these cards in the past. It's an end phase,
No.
so yeah, they're just not efficient enough in this game, and you might never kill the enemy leader because they might just be Voltroned or protected. They're generally pretty good, so
And this one is
they
a little
farm.
bit better than some of them because it just says in an end phase if the enemy leader is out of action. So as long
Yeah,
as you kill them at any point, you could score this.
yeah.
Um, but it's 1 glory.
It's
So
really hard to kill the enemy leader though. They tend to be
it
well
certainly
liked and
can be.
protected.
Yeah.
Point Blank, Surge. Score this immediately after an activation in which a friendly fighter made a successful range 3 attack action which targeted an adjacent fighter. So just shotgun styling someone in the face for it's 1 glory Surge. What do you think about this one?
I think the design of this one's really cool.
I feel
I
like when
think
people
it's
start with the design of this card is really cool, there's like a negative coming right after.
well, I think it is a good surge because basically it's make a successful attack. Um,
A melee
which is
attack.
well,
Like,
yeah, it has to
well,
be the
yeah,
bow.
it has to be adjacent, but it has to be the bow, yeah.
Yeah, but for a lot of warbands, if you had a card that just said make a successful range 1 attack, then you'd be all over that.
Right.
Like
True.
what armor was a great card, and that's cleave only. So
That's a very good
um,
point.
I think this is good. I think it's just cool because it makes you use the range weapon in a way that maybe you don't want to. So I think I would try this card out.
Yeah, cool thing is you can just like charge adjacent to a fighter, shoot
Yeah.
them, inspire, get 2 glory because you count point blank, maybe primacy,
Hmm.
can be pretty powerful if it compounds in the right way. Righteous Banishment is the next card for 1 glory. Score this in the end phase if 2 or more enemy fighters are out of action. What do you think?
I think it's pretty decent as far as 1 glory cards go. I think in general, I'm just rating these pretty low right now because of the current card pool with a lot of 2 glory end phase cards. But this is a very scoreable one.
Yeah, I think from a new player's perspective, it's a solid
Hmm.
way to learn the game and play to your end phase cards.
Hmm.
From a veteran perspective, like you mentioned, and I guess that's the lens that we look through most of the time. It's very difficult, or it's not difficult rather, but it's difficult to keep in the deck because there are just some better two end aggro objectives out there. Two end
It's also a
phase.
little bit matchup dependent. And in the previous meta, I would probably have like in some time in Beastgrave, I would have rated this higher than I would now. We were against crushes. Killing 2 of their fighters can be a victory condition. you know,
That's right. Yeah, it's
so
definitely worth more than just one glory.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, good point. Next objective is Shining Heroes. Score this in the end phase if each surviving friendly fighter is inspired for one glory. What do you think about that?
I think this one's kind of tricky. What do you think?
Yeah, so this is a tricky one. I like the fact that it says surviving friendly fighter. So this is going to be like unless you get really hot dice early in the game,
Hmm.
you're just going to eventually score this in round 2 or 3. And for one glory, don't know if that's worth it. But from a new player's perspective, I like the fact that it's teaching new players that hey, you want to inspire because not only you're getting benefit, but you can also potentially score glory from it as well. But I don't know if I
Yeah,
put it in my deck past the new phase.
yeah, I think I agree.
Okay, Zone of Banishment, last objective. For 2 glory, score this in the end phase if there are no enemy fighters in your territory. So it's a quicker version, but less payout of denial. What do you think?
So I think this is a really good card. Um, I think just knowing that they have it, and if it's popular, um, I think it may force your opponent to play a certain way, which I think can be powerful. Maybe the downside is that in the current meta, this may be how the enemy wants to play anyway. So if you know that a lot of warbands are just trying to get in your territory anyway, then maybe you wouldn't take this one.
Yeah, because
But
like the hunt advances and bold deeds and show of force,
exactly,
very
yeah,
popular.
yeah. So in that case, it may be too difficult. But it's something to keep in mind. 2 glory is really nothing to sneeze at, and in a like if someone was trying to play a passive vampire build, this card would be very frustrating.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And the fact that it's always at the back of your mind if you're playing against them, like, man, I just need to stick a fighter in there just in case. I think it's
Hmm.
a great mental, stimulation, but also like potential counterplay as well, which is neat.
Yeah, and in like
Um,
a best of 3, maybe you score it in the first game, and then they know that they have to be in your territory the entire time to stop you from scoring it again, and that can just be annoying, I think. So,
yeah, it almost actually kind of works as a win more card as well if your attacks are going off and you're killing fighters.
yeah,
So if you're like charging in enemy territory and on objectives, like shooting people down, then more likely than not, you're going to get an additional 2 glory in the end phase.
yeah, I agree.
Very cool. Okay, so we'll start with before we jump to the gambits, any favorite that you have? Is it the last card, which was the banishment zone of banishment?
um, no, I think I'm gonna go with the bold claim card, the surge for holding 1, 3, and or 2 of 1, 3, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's the one that I'm the most curious about trying out. We haven't had anything quite like that so far, so
I like point blank
yeah, that was cool.
shotgun. Pew. All right. Cool. Well, let's jump to the gambits then. So we've got etheric channeling. Play this only in an opponent's power step. The first range 3 plus attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation has your pick of +1 dice, cleave, or ensnare. Sounds like a
Yeah,
good card to me.
it is a really good card. Um, Interestingly, I think you almost always pick 1 dice
Yeah.
because I think 1 dice is almost always better than cleave or snare. But it's really good.
Yeah, really like it. I like how it's like a teaching step as well. Play this only in an opponent's power step because a player could play it in like their power step going into the opponent's activation. So I like how it's worded just for um,
Yeah,
introduction purposes.
yeah. I know in the past I've played something like determined effort, and they're like, "Are you sure it's about to be my activation?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So
I
this,
obviously don't know what's happening.
yeah, this will stop you from sounding like an idiot in front of your opponent. So,
I'm
um,
sure I'll figure out a way, but yeah.
yeah, that's funny. Okay, cool. Next card is Channeled Step. Choose one friendly fighter holding an objective that is not within 2 hexes of an enemy fighter. Place that fighter on another objective that is not within 2 hexes of enemy fighters. Give that fighter 1 move token. What do you think?
Wow. Hmm. So the two
So,
hex limitation is kind of a big deal, but this is also a lot of mobility, and you do have range 3. So this, I think, could be pretty good for them.
yeah. First off, I have to say I love the Owen Wilson. Wow. But I do like this one because what's really cool is you can score like a 2 or 4 card, and then maybe you draw into like a 1, 3, or 5 card, and then you
Mhm.
just jump and score that as a surge, or because it's after your opponent's activation for some of these cards, but still like pretty neat. And the mobility is nice. You mentioned the range, so they can. It's not within 2 hexes, but it could be within 3. And guess what's within range 3, or what shoots at range 3? The Thunder. What is it called? The Thunder. Thunderhead Great Bow.
Yeah.
Even though it's a crossbow.
Yeah, and you could do some weird stuff like charge onto um, an objective, shoot at somebody, and then like zip away. So I think I think there's a lot of cool options with this one.
Yeah, very cool. Next card, Concerted Consolidation. Choose up to 2 friendly fighters in your territory. Plus each fighter 1 hex towards the nearest objective token. What do you think?
I think this is a great card.
Yeah.
It's
Why do you
interesting that
think
it's in
it's?
your territory.
Yeah, that's interesting. It poses an interesting question because, like, when you playing this warband, do you want to have 3 objectives, or do you want to give your opponent 3 and then charge into their territory? And like look for the other 2, or sorry, guarantee 2 and look for the other 3, right?
Yeah, it is curious because I would say they have a very aggressive stat line, but these cards are making me want to play them defensively. So um, it's interesting so far. But
Yeah, I
a
mean,
push 2 fighters is great. So
yeah,
the only
push 2
reason I
fighters again.
wouldn't take it is oh sorry.
No, you got it.
The only reason I wouldn't take it is if I really didn't plan to be in my territory. Uh,
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Is even then you can place your objectives in such a way where you like moving closer to the nearest objective is also towards the enemy.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so that's cool. I mean, there's some dual viability there. But let's jump to the next one. Distracting Shot. Play this only in your power step. -1 dice from enemy fighters' attack actions the next activation to a minimum of 1.
Yeah. Um, I don't think these are bad ploys. We've seen these before. Um, I don't think they usually make the cut. They are very powerful in the first round before you have a lot of accuracy happening. So I think in a starter deck, this is pretty solid. I don't know if it'll make the cut in a competitive one.
Completely agree. Completely agree. Next one is called Great Bow Block. Image is kind of cool. Blocking a spear with his gun, so makes sense. Says what it does on the tin. Play this only in your power step. Each time a friendly fighter other than Sleek is dealt damage in the next activation, reduce that damage to 1.
Yeah, that one's really good.
Yeah, that can save your behind.
Yeah, yeah, this is a great card, and the other warbands that have it, um, like Chosen Axes and um, I think
Magor's
Magor's
Profiteers.
Fiends. Yeah,
Yeah.
so very, very nice.
The cool thing is that your opponent is pretty much, if they were trying to attack you, they can only attack Sleek.
Hmm.
Because everyone else that they try to attack, the 3 other fighters, they only take 1 damage.
Yeah, the other thing is it's worded a little bit differently, which is interesting. Because it says each time instead of the first time, like some of the other ones do. So
Yeah.
theoretically, if you're hit by a scything attack, you would still just take 1.
Yeah, or if someone's trying to combo you off the board.
Yeah, as long as the attacks are taking place in the activation,
Oh, that's
which I
right. Yeah.
think the reactions might not be for
Some of
like
them,
wolf
yeah.
attacks or combo. Yeah,
True. Still, pretty neat.
yeah,
Pretty solid
great card.
Next card is Healing Tempest. Choose 1 friendly fighter and roll 1 defense die. On a roll of block, heal 2, otherwise heal 1. This is a faction version of Healing Potion.
Yeah, which is a pretty solid card.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've got Elite Warband and they're starting to take some damage. 50
Yeah.
50, or not 50-50, but 33% of the time they can negate that damage, which is pretty cool.
One cool thing about Great Bow Block that I just thought of is when you play it, you are kind of painting a target on sleek,
Yes.
which might mean that you end up putting everybody on guard. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, that's actually a really good combo. Yeah. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of forces
Very
them to
nice.
make a possibly bad decision.
Yeah. You're effectively making a very opponent a very bad activation for one of their activations, which is always a blessing in this game.
Absolutely.
Next card, Lightning Flare. Play this only in your power step, and the next activation, enemy fighters cannot target fighters that are 2 or more hexes away.
I would say this is very situational. It would be useful in the mirror match.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, they're paired up against a warband that all 3 of their fighters have range 2 attack actions. But
Yeah.
I mean,
it's completely useless in the box set. Yeah.
yeah, unless you're trying to stop the drummer. But yeah, interesting card. I think it's a little weak though, but
Yeah.
it does, I guess, teach positioning, which is cool for a starter set.
Yeah, that's true.
Raise the Alarm is the next card. Play this only in an opponent's power step, +1 dice to a friendly fighter's attack action, and the next activation that target an enemy fighter with 1 or more charge tokens.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't as good as some of the other +1 dice cards that we have because it has that limitation, but that's a pretty easy limitation. So I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. But yeah, I definitely think like Victimize and Sitting Target, and well, Victimize wouldn't work, but Sitting Target is better. Stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's true. It doesn't have any kind of range limitation, so
Yeah.
that is important.
Yep. Stalwart Defense. Play this only in your power step. +1 damage or +1 defense to each friendly fighter holding an objective in the next activation. So, essentially, if you've got 3 fighters holding objectives that are all Stormcast, Aphus and Melisande go to 2, and Celestus goes to 3 block.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that could be pretty good. Like you said, the more fighters that are holding objectives, I think the better it is. And they are on, if they're on 2 block and they go to 3 block, I actually like that a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's very situational. Might not make the cut, but it's cool to teach players again the fact that you can manipulate defense dice for at least a turn or an activation.
Yeah. I think it competes with Buried Instinct a little bit.
Yes.
And I imagine Buried Instinct is slightly better.
Yeah, I would agree. Last gambit on this warband is called Swift Step. Choose 1 friendly fighter, push that fighter 1 hex. Push that fighter up to 2 hexes instead if it's sleek.
He's a quick one.
He's a fast doji.
Yeah. I like this a lot. Side step, but a little bit better if you're sleek.
Yeah, it's a good card. Fundamentals. Jonathan, do you have a favorite of the bunch? I think there's a couple good ones in here, actually.
Yeah, there really are. I think the best one is the Great Bow Block.
Yes. 100%. Very powerful card. I also like Etheric Channeling.
Yeah.
+1 die, cleaver, and snare, but as you mentioned, probably almost always +1 dice. So.
Yeah. But it's cool that they can get 2 of those along with Raise the Alarm. So.
Yeah. Very cool card. So I think overall I'm a bit higher on the gambits than I was on the objectives, but the objectives are interesting. So that's not a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
They're just there's going to be a lot of testing, I think.
They sort of force a very interesting play style for this warband. The objectives do. The gambits seem much more straightforward.
Agreed. Okay, well, let's jump to the upgrades. So first one is restricted to Aphus. It's called Cautious Advance. Reaction: after this fighter's attack action, in which this fighter made an attack action, puts this fighter 1 hex.
I like this effect. I don't really like that it's limited to Aphus.
Yeah. same. It's a powerful effect. It's pretty much duelist speed.
Mhm.
But yeah, unfortunately, it is restricted to Aphis. But for a beginner, it's cool to like learn that certain upgrades only work on certain fighters, and maybe if you really like this card, you can prioritize keeping Aphis safe compared to the other two. Maybe play more aggressively with Melisson, you know. So
Yeah.
some cool play there. Next card is Concussive Cloud. Range, so it's an attack action that you can give to any one of the Stormcasts, because this is a type of ammo shot, I think.
Hmm.
Range 3, 2 smash, 1 damage, but it gives knockback 1. If this attack action succeeds, give the target 1 move token.
Yeah. So it's a nice way to lock somebody up if you need to.
Yeah. The cool thing is this is not a Thunderhead Greatbow attack action, so you
Yeah,
can
that's true.
use this more than once. You can shoot with the bow, and then maybe if you have, well, one of the essential cards is, I think it's Glory Seeker, right?
Hmm.
So you can just have another backup, shoot with range 2 as well. So
Yeah, maybe play like a Jealous Defense as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
cool applications here, I think.
And knockback 1 situationally can knock you into a lethal or something.
Yeah,
So I like that it's sort of free. I mean, this is a pretty solid ranged upgrade.
yeah, I really like it. And again, you can kind of get around that limitation on your gun.
Yeah. I think it's very
Um,
annoying in the second or third round when you most likely have somebody in range.
yeah,
So,
and the cool thing is because of the knockback, you can like blast fighters like away from sidestep range if they're holding an objective. So
mhm.
if you push them 2 back, they can't sidestep back on, and then maybe it opens it up for one of your other fighters. So
Yeah, that's true.
cool thought there. Cool Head is restricted to Melisson. Pretty much, it's a Eagle Eye. You can reroll 1 dice in this fighter's attack rolls.
Yeah. Despite the limitation, I think this is powerful enough that you think about taking it.
Yeah,
In a faction only deck, I think it's great.
absolutely, absolutely. I don't. I think maybe you just take Eagle Eye instead if you're
Yeah.
playing with a universal pool, but very, very, very accurate in your assessment.
Right. Yeah, because I don't
Next,
think I think maybe Eagle Eye is the only range 3 accuracy we have right now, right? The
yeah, that's been
upgrades.
released thus far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah.
The next one is called "I'll Cover You!" Exclamation point. Restricted to Celestus, Melisson, and Aphis. If this fighter has not yet made a Thunderhead Greatbow attack action in this round, each time a friendly fighter within 3 hexes is the target of attack action, this fighter is a supporting fighter.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
It's interesting because like it kind of forces your fighters to kind of be bunched up. I know that there's like a 3 hex limitation between each objective, so this could work on like another fighter. Works better. Um, Obviously, it works on the person who's using it, so you probably stick this on Celestus, so he always gets. Sorry, it doesn't work on. Well, I guess it does work on yourself. No, it says each time a friendly fighter within 3. So yeah, you are a friendly fighter within 3. So if Celestus hasn't shot yet, he can pretty much just gain supports on.
I don't know if he can support himself.
Well, it says right here, if this fighter has not yet made a Thunderhead Greatbow attack action this round, each time a friendly fighter within 3 hexes is the target of an attack action, this fighter is a supporting. I guess you can't. Yeah. Okay, maybe it says because this fighter is a supporting fighter, it wouldn't count as supporting yourself. But I think that the way that I read within 3 means you can count yourself. So
Yeah, normally within 3 means that you could. I'm just not sure if you can, but that's I
I don't
may
think
need an FAQ. I
it
don't know.
might. I don't think you can because it says this fighter is a supporting fighter, and if this fighter is attacked, then this fighter cannot support himself, unless it does because
I
there's
would
sometimes
certainly
cards.
think it works that way,
Okay, well
but I
then
don't
what do
know.
you think? Pretty much a what's it called, bonded for one of your fighters then, I guess, huh, on defense if you haven't shot yet.
Yeah. Generally, I would say it's probably not worth it. Support is nice, and on 2 dice, it's pretty nice. But you can always just attack this fighter, assuming that you aren't able to support yourself. And I think there are probably better defensive upgrades. So that's how I think
Yeah.
about it.
Okay, cool. Long range is the next upgrade. +1 range to this fighter's Thunderhead Greatbow attack action. So you can make one of your Thunderhead Greatbow attack actions range 4. Ultimately, I'm not sure if this is worth it because you're only Presumably you don't get this in the first round, and then you only have 2 range 4 attacks you can use.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what was the card from Nightvault? Longshot, I think.
Long shot.
I guess that wasn't an upgrade, but yeah, I think range 3 is probably enough. I think they're probably good.
Got it. Okay, yeah. I guess long shot wasn't used, but
Yeah.
someone did play it against me at ATC. I don't know if you remember that, but I was like, oh yeah, their Thunder can hit my Thunder, and he's like, long shot, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Thankfully he missed.
Yeah, that's the
Good
problem.
game though. Yeah. Loyal Companion, restricted to Sleek. Reaction: after another friendly fighter's activation, push this fighter up to 2 hexes so that the 2 fighters are adjacent. If you cannot use this reaction. So this is really cool because you can like charge with a fighter, and then Sleek can come up and be a supporting fighter. Or you can move and get Sleek onto in a way in which he can be a surviving defensive fighter, or maybe like activate his guard.
Yeah.
Reaction.
I think this could be pretty good if your strategy was to keep everybody together and use Sleek's reaction to keep guard on stuff, to keep him around.
Mm-hmm.
I also wonder if the way that you'll end up playing Sleek is just to keep him in the back holding one of the important objectives and go forward with the other 3.
Yeah.
So I think depending on how you play this warband, maybe this is something you think about. I feel like there's probably too many good upgrades in the game right now, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I like I absolutely think that Sleek is primarily going to be hold the back objective, keep him safe. But yeah, I guess if you're playing aggro, I mean, Sleek is a better than Grawl and Legane, so
Yeah.
Maybe he can get some damage upgrades as well.
Yeah, and it's possible that you'll. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just finishing the thought, especially because you're going to be shooting with these guys more. So maybe Sleek is a great candidate for a great strength or Sting of the Urgrub or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's also possible that you would be holding an objective, in the first round or towards the end of the first round, and then you would charge forward or something. So, because that guard reaction is really good.
It is. Super good. Super good. Okay, getting down to our last 3 cards here. Reconsecrate for an upgrade action. This fighter can only make this action if this fighter is in the same hex as an objective token. Pick another objective token. Place each objective token in the hex the other token was in. Then give this fighter 1 charge token. So it's like Shade Shardcaller from Shadespire.
Yeah.
But you get a charge token.
Right. So it would help with their objective cards, but I don't like the charge token or the fact that it takes an action. So
yeah,
that might not be good enough.
Yeah, it might be rough, but it's cool to again teach newer players that they can manipulate the board state. And then you're absolutely right. Like you can play this in a round 4, right before the end phase, like 4th activation rather, and then swap an objective, score your hand or a surge or something like that too.
Yeah.
If your opponent has an activation, or maybe after their first activation in the next round. So, really interesting to note, which I just thought about, is if you have the last activation and you have a surge that scores after an opponent's activation, and then in the next round you go again, then you have to effectively wait a whole nother activation before your opponent can react to you. So in a way, it could be like you can buff up the way that you're trying to protect the objectives, or it could actually be even more detrimental given the fact that you're assuming you might score,
Yeah. Yeah, this warband may really like to go first for that reason. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Stoic Fortitude, classic card, but it's restricted to Celestus, +1 wound. What do you think?
I think I like it. There's just a lot of other wounds in the meta right now, but I feel like most of the time you're going to want to be putting the wounds on him anyway. So I think it's worth considering, but you may not need it after some of the other options. But.
Yeah, I think if you're really like want like a 3rd +1 wound,
yeah,
or you don't want to spend a restricted slot, then maybe Stoic Fortitude is a great option.
Yeah, I agree.
Last card, Strength of Sigmar. Man, card art is so cool. He's just blowing through one of those glaive wraiths with his shoulder. +1 damage to this fighter's range 1 attack actions. It's not restricted, so it can go on Sleek as well. So pretty much in faction, great strength, but for range 1 attacks only.
Hmm.
What do you think?
Well, they don't have any range 2 attacks, so it doesn't
Yes.
really matter that it's range 1.
Unless
I
you're
guess it
going
makes
for
sense.
attack action upgrades.
Yeah, that's true. They could take weapons. So in general, I think it's a pretty decent source of damage.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Did we skip a card?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. Okay. Do I have a favorite?
Did we talk about Reconquer?
That was the one I wasn't sure we got.
Yeah, maybe I just skipped it because it's not that good, but that's my bad. Yeah, Reconquer
It's
is
okay.
+1 move. Reaction after this fighter's move action, push this fighter 1 hex onto an objective token.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's not +2 move.
Yeah. Yeah, Savage Speed is just so much better of an option. Even potentially, Gambits can slot in here. The reaction is cool because maybe you can move 4 and then the fifth hex is the objective.
Mm-hmm.
But I rather just take the flat 5.
Yeah, of course it doesn't take away a defense dice like Savage Speed does. So,
That's true, but only one of them inspires. So Sleek and Celestus inspired it too, though. The others don't.
yeah. So you just wouldn't want to put it on the leader.
Correct. Yeah. Or Sleek. But yeah, okay. Well, thanks for catching that hiccup there. It's the first time I've done that. What's your favorite card upgrade?
It may have to be the Concussive Cloud. I feel like I'm stealing yours, but
You are.
we
You are
never we
indeed.
never coordinate these before, and
Yeah, but it's good because it makes me think of another one.
yeah.
It's a great card. It's a very good card. Um, I think I'm a fan of Loyal Companion because I think I want to play them aggressively. So
Yeah.
maybe positioning an extra support and then like being able to auto react with the his reaction to help put a fighter on guard might be really cool. So generally, I wouldn't invest in upgrades for like some of the weaker like dog, cat, demon hound type fighters.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Sleek is an important enough part of this piece, this puzzle, that it could be useful because Warning Cry is really good.
Yeah, I think it is really good, especially against like a range 1 only warband where you can keep everybody close and get those card tokens out.
Yeah, 100%, man. So that concludes all the cards for the Storm of Celestus. Jonathan, what do you think about this warband holistically now that we've kind of gone over everything and like how would you play them?
Well, I certainly want to try them out the way that it seems like they were designed with this focus on objective tokens. It seems like a really interesting way to play. It seems like they have the tools for it with the ways to go on guard, the leader not being able to be pushed if he's inspired. Of course, there's some universal tools like Barrier Instinct that you can take. There are ways to stay on objectives if you want to. You could even take some of the surges for being attacked when you're on an objective and staying on there, like Steadfast Defender. And so that could be really interesting. You charge on, you inspire your leader, they attack you back, and you score like 2 surges. So if that doesn't work, I think you go aggro, and I think they have the tools for that too.
I completely agree. I think for me, I'm leaning more toward like a range Magor's playstyle,
Mm-hmm.
where like I'm trying to um, charge up into their territory and just start shooting as much as I can.
Yeah.
Reacting by punching them and kicking them and shoulder barging them. But I do think that playing into your faction card strengths is really important. Um,
Yeah.
and so that could make it hard to build in a universal pool. But I think there are a lot of good universals out there right now, at the time of this release, anyways, that maybe it's not as hard as I'm thinking it is. So it's really interesting that we're gravitating towards 2 opposite spectrums of play, but I think they're both pretty viable. I'm looking forward to seeing how you do with the objective style because I think if you can figure it out, it can be as powerful as maybe the Dread Pageant, which are solid upper B tier, if not, A tier right now.
Yeah, yeah. Notably, they don't really have any enemy pushes. I think. I don't think, but I mean, they have a lot of range, which can be nice for that. But
Yeah.
in the power step, it seems like they're mainly able to push their own fighters.
Yeah. I mean, well, there are 2 distractions in the universal pool right now, so
Yeah, yeah.
maybe,
There's a lot of ways to push. So
yeah.
yeah.
But I like it. Maybe a good candidate for confusion for these fighters as well, since they're maybe if you're
Mm.
going to the hold objective approach. But I like them, man. I like range fighters. I like Stormcast. I'm definitely going to give these guys a go. Weaknesses and strengths. Maybe weaknesses they're Stormcast. So when you start losing a fighter or two, it can be really hard to kind of come back from that. Sleek kind of offsets it, but I
Hmm.
imagine in some games he might just be like dead weight. Um,
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
might be a challenge. So I don't know if he offsets it, but I don't know, strengths, man. I think if you roll well, then you're going to be in a great spot. But then again, that's for any warband. It's pretty much this game. If you start rolling hot, you're going to be in a good spot. So, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's
I
a
think
great
they
intro
seem
warband.
solid.
Yeah, I think they're good. I think I enjoy the fact that you can learn the game with them, but you can also have some fun. And I think the nuance will be with the objective stuff, really.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think figuring out how to make that work because it's kind of different. It's different than anything else we've seen before, and it's something that I think I have to wrap my head around. Like, how hard is it actually to control the objectives that you want to after your opponent's activation, and then like it's just something your opponent's going to have to get used to as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's gonna be really interesting.
yeah,
But I guess if you figure it out, it might be really good.
I think so. I mean, there's a lot of glory in those surges, so
Yeah, there's a
I think
lot. Did you
you
do a
think
total?
about those. A total of glory?
Yeah, I can do it real quick.
Um, I can.
17.
Yeah.
And the Crimson Court had 17 as well. Interesting. Okay, cool. Well, if you don't have any more closing thoughts, I think that wraps it up for this episode.